Hi, Lyssa here. So I was waiting around for the weather to change, maybe get a little sunnier, and I decided not to do that today. And it really brought forward one of the ideas that was mulling around in my mind about today's blog, which are 7 shifts that will change your life for the better. And one of them is don't wait for the sun to come out to take action, to do something, because you may have an internal rain cloud inside saying, don't do this thing. And if you took the opportunity to just push on ahead, even though it's not as sunny as you want it to be outside, you at least get the thing accomplished. And there's something powerful in moving from inaction to action. But let me start with the 7 shifts that I think you might want to be paying attention to in your life and in your mind, honestly, that can really change your life in better and more empowered ways. So really the first one I want to start with is other people's opinion of you is none of your business. And this is such a crucial idea because I don't know about you, but I know for myself, I've walked around at times in my life just really wanting to please people, be liked by people, be seen to be competent, smart, right, whatever that was, right? And when they didn't go, oh, Lyssa, you're awesome, you rock, it can leave you with this sense of not being good enough or not being appreciated, not being acknowledged in some way for something that you've done. And it is a lot of pressure that we put outside of ourselves so that we can feel good. I call it a little like funny thing about the sun. I call it a like being solar powered, right? So I'm only good if the solar power shining on me is that people like what I'm doing and appreciate me and tell me how great I am. That puts me at a huge deficit in the sense of people are busy. People have other things to do than to make sure they pet me and I feel okay. So how do we start to bring that from inside? And one way we do it is we really need to let go of this idea that other people's opinion of us is what is important or crucial to our experience of ourselves. So I'm not saying that it's not hurtful if somebody doesn't like you, but what I am saying is at the end of the day, not everybody's gonna like us, and maybe that's okay, right? Which takes me to the next mind shift, perspective shift that you might want to consider, which is what was the impact of this situation that I find myself in? We can get into this kind of idea of the awful, horrible, terribles, this is so just wrong, I don't like it. And the reality is we may not like a lot of things, but they don't have a great deal of impact on us personally. And so if your neighbor, I had a neighbor who really didn't like us from the moment that we moved in. I can't even get into that whole story, but he did not like us at all. And so he made it really evident that he didn't like us. And I really struggled with this. It didn't feel fair. We hadn't done anything wrong. We're nice people. We wanted to be friendly. We invited him along with all of our other neighbors over to our house when we moved in. We made efforts to try and be good neighbors, and it didn't matter. He just didn't like us. I don't know why, and it really doesn't ultimately matter. But when I think back on the impact of that, the only impact on that was that it annoyed me and that I wasted time thinking about it. So those were the impacts, but those were my choices, not his. But if his opinion of me didn't matter and I had just been willing to let it go, there would have been zero impact on my career, zero impact on my friendships, zero impact on my relationship, pretty much zero impact everywhere other than the places where I was choosing to be impacted. So make a point of looking critically at what is the real impact of something that I don't like or somebody's opinion of me that I don't like in how I live my life. And if it's not there, think about that. Seeking a win-win solution is the next perspective shift. Stephen Covey talks about win-win, finding a win-win solution. And there was a really interesting story that I learned when I took that training many, many years ago. And it was a story about, actually it was Stephen Covey's brother and his sister-in-law, and they had a bunch of kids, and they had a daughter. And the daughter would, was a good kid, good grades, all kinds of good stuff, but she had a curfew. And one night she went out with her friends and she came back past the curfew. And the parents, were upset and worried. So they were waiting up for her. And she walked in and they said, okay, well, good, you're home safe. Go to bed. We're going to talk about this in the morning. And as they were talking about this idea of win-win versus win-lose, it was really apparent that they were striving for a win-win solution with this kid of theirs that they loved, but also that they wanted to follow the family rules, right? And so they sat down with her and they talked about what would make this situation a win for her. And, not the situation about coming home late, but the situation about how the rule was structured for the curfew. And she came up with some ideas, I want to stay out with my friends. I feel like I've earned it. I'm good at school. She had a lot of valid reasons for why she wanted more autonomy and freedom. And then they had the things that would make it a win for them also, which was they needed to know that she was safe, that she needed to call in. She needed to agree that if she were ever in a dangerous situation or some situation that was really uncomfortable to her, that she would call them and they could come and help her. And so they were able to kind of navigate this conversation in such a way that they came up with a solution that was a win for both the parents and for the kid. It's such a great example because we have so many different places in our lives where we have that opportunity to look for what is the win that I need and what is the win that you need, so that we can come to a place where we can find a way to navigate a way of being with each other that works for both of us. Oftentimes when I was doing relationship counseling, marriage counseling in particular, and I've also seen this in a lot of the executive coaching and organizational coaching that I've done, is that we come with this win-lose idea. And the problem with win-lose is this: do you want to be the loser? I know I don't. So if none of us wants to be the loser, how is a win-lose going to help us feel connected, help us feel trust, help us feel safety, help us feel like we have each other's best interest at heart? Win-lose is a zero-sum game. It is a little like war. It's fine if you're going to war because there needs to be a winner and a loser, but anytime it comes to any relationships that you have, burning bridges is not useful. And finding ways to navigate to a place where you can both feel like you are getting some part of what you need in order to move forward is what is going to help people feel like they matter, and also to feel like they have buy-in to the agreement that has been set. So really, this perspective shift from win-lose to win-win is crucial in most relationships. The next perspective shift that I think is crucial is so many of us spend a lot of time looking backwards at the past over things that we regret and we're resentful about. So releasing resentment and regret in order to thrive is the next perspective shift. And oftentimes one of the things that comes up for people when there are these things in the past that impact them still is that they haven't resolved them in some way. They're still wrestling with them, wrangling around. I can't believe this is what I had, this experience that I had. It was, again, going back to that horrible, terrible, awful. And oftentimes, many of the people that I've sat with, the past is a terrible, awful, horrible place that they've been. And yet, by continually looking at the experience from that perspective, what we tend to do is we hold on to it rather than what do I need to grieve? And this is a funny thing because we often think of grieving as something that we only do when we lose someone or something that's really important to us. My dog died earlier this year and oh my gosh, it hit me in the heart so hard. And I really had to grieve that loss. But there are other places we also need to grieve. There are other things that we need to grieve that have nothing to do with losing someone or something right now, but rather it could be grieving a decision that we made, or grieving a lost opportunity, or grieving a perspective that maybe didn't help us in some way. And it's about taking a look at that. I don't think that we grieve things like we just shut a door and it's over. It doesn't seem to work that way with any of the people that I know. Grieving tends to be much more like the tides at an ocean. There's an ebb and a flow, and sometimes the ebb and flow comes with great force and waves crash upon our shores. And at other times, there's a tranquil calmness, and we still feel it. Like we can still feel that we are a little sad in there, but it's enough letting go and calmness that we can start to begin to look at really this idea maybe of how we learn from it. What do we need to get from that experience to help us so that we don't repeat the pattern over and over again from the place of being stuck in it? And oftentimes if you find yourself feeling angry or stuck or circling the drain around an idea, it's an indicator that there's something that needs to be acknowledged and needs to be grieved. So grieving in order to release the resentment so that you can move forward in your life with, I don't know, passion and clarity. I really want to talk about this one too, because I think this one's really fun. See yourself as empowered. There was an article that I read probably last year, I guess, and it was written by a young woman who was from North Africa and had been through just a devastating experience with machete-wielding horsemen, and her retelling of her story was so empowered. And it was interesting when they asked her how she was able to do that. She said, by owning the story and making it mine, I took the power and I was able to rewrite it and retell it in a way that was meaningful to me, which is really a lot of what I talk about in story jacking. Change your inner narrative, transform your life. How we talk in our head to ourselves about the things that happen can either empower us or disempower us. And there's a wonderful TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, and she talks about this idea of power posing. So like, you know, find your power pose, get into these positions, stand with your chest out, be proud, bring that forward in yourself, and then think about what it is that you're wrestling with in your life. How do you wrestle with it if you feel empowered to rewrite the narrative that you're telling yourself about it? If I tell it as a trauma where I'm the victim forever, I'm stuck there. If I tell it from the position of, I learned so much, so many valuable things about how to choose wisely, the people in my life, how to make decisions, to trust myself, all the different things that I can learn from this, I can have a much more empowered stance. So find your power pose and then revisit the things that need to be revisited, grieve them so that you can let them go. There's a couple more things I want to really go over. One of them is this idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of those funny things that we feel like we may be doing for somebody else. If I forgive them, it'll say it's okay. And what if we shift that perspective completely? What if when we forgive somebody, we are not saying that was okay behavior? It was in no way okay. In fact, there are all these indicators of why it was so not okay. And we're going to acknowledge those things too. But I'm not going to hold on to this forever. You made a terrible mistake. I experienced that mistake, and I don't want to stay stuck here in that mistake with you. So if I forgive you and I can move forward with my life and let this thing go, then the forgiveness is really for me. And I think it was Maya Angelou who said, you know, hatred is like a poison that we take ourselves hoping will kill somebody else. It may be an older parable than even Maya Angelou. But this idea of forgiveness is, I'm not willing to take the poison. I'm not willing to stay angry at you. I'm not willing to do that for me. So forgiving ourselves and forgiving those around us is so important. Honestly, we all live in glass houses. There should be no stones thrown, because every single one of us has places in our lives where if we think about it, we could be ashamed of our own behaviors, the things that we have said or done. And part of being able to recognize that and own that is that we can then go, that isn't how I want to choose to continue to live my life. I want to acknowledge it, own it, so that I can move on. So I want to offer the same to others. So that being another perspective shift, I think is very useful. The final one that I want to talk about is really narrow your focus. Put your energy to the things that matter most to you. We live in a world where there is so much information just like bombarding us constantly. You know, it's very hard to even do a blog post like this and not have tons of little alerts coming across, notifications coming across your phone, your computer, email. It's just everywhere. We're inundated with information and we can get very overwhelmed by this. And so one of the biggest things that I've done in my own life to really shift my perspective on this so that I can show up in a more empowered way in my own life is to really start to focus on what are the 1 to 4 things that I really care about. And then unsubscribe to everything else. I do not need to know everything. I can go look it up on the internet once in a while when I need to. I can get on YouTube and see what's going on in the world and stay up to date, but I don't need it to be bombarding me. And there's something about energy also that I think is really important. If every day each of us are given a pie of energy, you get that whole pie. If you spend half of it on stuff that doesn't matter, that means you only have half of it left for the things that do. So by getting the stuff that doesn't matter, really, and Stephen Covey talked about it, you know, first things first, right? Prioritize your big rocks and your middle-sized rocks. Let go of the little rocks. They don't matter. Prioritize what matters so that you can put the whole pie of energy on that. So I hope these perspective shifts will help you in thinking about ways to really improve and better your life. And please come back and watch more videos in the future. Look forward to seeing you again next time.